Hello and welcome to the dawn of the new year. Close enough, I guess. These are my top 10 films of 2018. Keep in mind that these are my personal opinion and your list will probably differ from mine. I'm not trying to personally attack anyone who disagrees when it comes to my best or worst lists, which are both in this video. Now, before we begin, I'd like to do a sort of honorable mentions real quick. At number 2 of my honorable mentions, we have A Quiet Place. John Krasinski's A Quiet Place actually wasn't bad. It was a pretty solid thriller with a neat concept that I felt was executed well enough to be memorable. Its solid cast does a good job of giving us a believable family and the drama is there. Unfortunately, it doesn't do much to elevate itself amongst other thrillers. A Quiet Place is a perfectly fine film that warrants a recommendation for me. And at number 1 in my honorable mentions, we have Avengers Infinity War. 10 years of build-up to give us an extremely satisfying payoff. Think about it. If Marvel screwed this up, the MCU might have been in grave danger. They were tasked with giving us a villain worthy of a 10-year wait, as well as managing such a large cast of colorful characters. And man, they fucking nailed it. While the film does have its issues, it's undeniably one of the funnest films I've seen in a long time, and this is definitely the best MCU movie so far. It might be a little weird for someone who hasn't seen a single Marvel movie to get into because of all the different kinds of characters, but I really do believe that should you just sit down and watch it for a little bit, you'll start to catch on and everything will make sense.
When I'm done, half of humanity will still exist. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. I hope they remember you.
And these were the films I didn't get a chance to watch, but I'm sure were great and they're on my list to watch in 2019. Okay, starting off the list at number 10, we have Anish Chaganty's theatrical debut, Searching. And it was riveting. While not perfect, it certainly does its job at keeping you interested in a mystery. The filmmaking of keeping it within a screen, whether it's through a computer, a phone, or a news broadcast, is actually a really creative way of telling a story. This has been attempted before to less than great results. The acting was a bit shoddy from some of the actors, but for the most part the performances were pretty great. Overall, Searching was a riveting mystery that I thoroughly enjoyed watching.
You broke his jaw!
I know my daughter.
I'm trying to help you find my daughter.
I didn't know her. I didn't know my daughter.
And at number 9, we have Mission Impossible Fallout. Another entry in this fun, dumb spy thriller series that is honestly the best in the series so far. I admit there was a few moments where I was left scratching my head in confusion, but honestly I can't deny that I had a blast with this movie. The stunt work and fight choreography were very well done, and the story was solid and cohesive enough to give us a great entry in this fun series.
What the hell is he doing?
I find it best not to look.
And at number 8, we have Sorry to Bother You. Probably the craziest movie I'll see all year. Boots Riley's debut film, Sorry to Bother You, is absolutely insane. Its underlying themes of racial prejudice and the flaws of capitalism go well with a dark comedy set in an alternate universe. The performances are all great and the original soundtrack by Boots is awesome. The film's ending did leave a lot to be desired and the overall direction of it was pretty shoddy, but overall I can't deny that I was enthralled by this movie for its duration. I look forward to seeing more of Boots' work if it's going to be this great.
Ash, I'm gonna make you a proposal. I can see that you want to say no, but I wouldn't do that before you see what I'm offering. Ash, you are awesome.
And at number 7 we have Isle of Dogs. Wes Anderson's newest film, Isle of Dogs, is quite possibly my favorite of his. I'm a fan of how Anderson presents his movies and I feel like animation really helps to elevate his style. The story of a boy finding his lost dog is pretty unoriginal, but Anderson puts a nice twist on it. One of my complaints with this film is that I feel like there are too many characters and they're not really given enough time to develop. While that may seem like a pretty big issue, it doesn't really distract from the grand adventure this movie takes you on. Isle of Dogs really captures the spirit of Wes Anderson's style and gives us a fun script, bubbly characters, and great visuals, all tied up in a nice story about man's best friend.
Wherever he is, if he's alive, we'll find your dog.
It's gonna be a fight!
I wish somebody spoke his language.
Wow.
And at number 6 we have Jonah Hill's debut film, Mid-90s. Mid-90s was a really heartwarming movie that dealt with serious issues in kind of a lighthearted way. The idea of skating being your escape from life's bullshit can either be really dull and annoying or great depending on its execution. It's great to see directors try new ways of telling the same story and breathing some life into cliches in movies. This film does have its issues in that some of the acting isn't all that great. I understand that there's a lot of child actors in this film, but a lot of them aren't really that great. There's a scene in particular where one character breaks down in tears and instead of ugly crying, he kind of sounds like he's laughing. This actor had this issue in Lady Bird as well, and other than that I feel like he's a good actor. He just can't ugly cry. The film does a great job of portraying youth and none of the dialogue feels forced. The cinematography has that vintage 90s feel and the shot composition is nice and flexible, especially considering Jonah Hill is a first-time director. Overall, Mid-90s was a pretty damn good film and I recommend it to anyone who wants to feel nostalgia for childhoods they probably didn't have.
Yo, Stevie fucking insane.
And at number 5, we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a technically fantastic, fun, animated movie that really delivered an entertaining and emotional superhero film. As a longtime Spider-Man fan, it feels fantastic to see stories like this come to life in such a beautiful, eye-popping art style, and with a great cast of colorful characters and a healthy blend of comedy and drama, really makes this film special. While there are issues with its story, I have no problem calling this film my favorite superhero movie and one of my favorites of the entire year.
I love you, Miles.
Yeah, I know that.
You gotta say I love you back.
Dad, are you serious?
I wanna hear it.
You wanna hear me say
I
it?
love you, Dad.
You're dropping me off out of school?
I love you, Dad.
Look at this place.
Dad, I love you.
Dad, I love you.
That's a copy.
And at number 4, we have Annihilation, which just barely missed my top 3. This movie was a fantastic sci-fi film that truly instilled terror in me. Its special effects and use of color really gives this film a beautiful feel. This horrifying monstrosity of an environment is absolutely gorgeous. Everything from the look of the shimmer to the creatures it holds is stunning. The film is mostly about how such an alien environment can drive a person insane. Sci-fi like Under the Skin, Ex Machina, and this are films that I love because of how ruthless they are. They don't pull their punches and these films aren't afraid of disturbing you or making you uncomfortable. They take risks and are great examples of the sci-fi genre done right. The performances by Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac are great as usual and the direction and cinematography is breathtaking. This film does get a little long near the end, but I feel like it has a great ending. Other than that, I feel like it's a film that you should really experience for yourself.
We can camp here tonight. It's destroying everything.
It's not destroying. It's making something new.
So those last 7 movies I listed can be interchanged in any order really, but these 3 films were honestly really difficult to rank. Either of these 3 films could have been my number 1. And at number 3, we have 8th Grade. If I rated film based solely on how much I can relate to one movie, 8th Grade would probably be my favorite film of all time. I physically cringed at multiple parts of this movie because I was basically Kayla when I was in junior high. I'm normally not a big fan of Bo Burnham, his kind of comedy just isn't for me, but I gotta give credit and say that this is a seriously impressive movie. Very rarely do movies get junior high and high school right because it's written by people who hadn't been in school for 20 years. But the characters feeling natural is one of 8th Grade's biggest strengths. Now, this may sound silly, but growing up, making YouTube videos was basically my escape from how much middle school sucked. I didn't have very many friends and I was often quiet and on my own, but when I would come home, I would grab my crummy little camera and my DS and just play games while I spoke to an empty void. It felt great, like I was putting on a performance even if no one was watching. It was relieving in a way, and seeing that portrayed on screen just really got to me on a very personal level. I will say that the direction and the soundtrack are the weakest parts of the film for me. The shot composition is boring, lots of shot, reverse shot, and rarely do we get anything fun or inventive with the camera. The soundtrack feels a little too intrusive. I don't really like when a film has an overpowering soundtrack that shouts at you at how you should be feeling. Luckily, these issues don't really distract from how great I thought this movie was. Bo Burnham's first film is a home run for me, and I really look forward to his future work.
Exciting and scary and fun.
When did you get Snapchat? What grade?
5th grade.
5th grade? What? Yo, see?
And at number 2, we have Roma. Alfonso Cuarón's Roma is honestly one of the best dramas I've ever seen, with some of the most beautiful cinematography and sound design I've experienced this year. This movie is seriously impressive. Its characters and stories feel so real and alive, and I always appreciate a movie that can make me forget that there are actors putting on a performance, and they make me feel like I'm getting a chance to peek into a window of their lives. The lack of a soundtrack, or any real score I mean, actually makes this film better. It's hard to accept the fact that your film does not need a soundtrack sometimes, and in some cases it can lead to a movie that has a sloppy, kind of poorly put together score. However, this movie does not have that issue. While I am hesitant to put it above Children of Men, Roma is seriously one of Cuarón's best films. And finally, at number 1, we have Hereditary. From the moment I saw the trailer, I knew I had to see this film. Not since Robert Eggers' The Witch have I wanted to see a horror film so badly, and boy did it deliver. Hereditary has to be one of the most disturbing and unsettling movies I've seen in a very long time. Toni Collette's performance was fantastic, and she deserves every award for it. The tone was consistently eerie, and the film's soundtrack was great and added to the overall vibe of the film perfectly. Ari Aster, another first-time theatrical director, had a great idea and executed it so well that I still remember almost every frame 7 months later. Hereditary was being compared a lot to The Exorcist when it first came out, and boy does it deserve it. I cannot praise this film enough. I highly recommend you check it out. However, do not expect a traditional horror movie because this film really isn't that. There are probably like 2 jump scares throughout, and they're probably the weakest parts of the film for me. This is a family drama with some scary ass shit going on. This film will make you feel uncomfortable, and it does not pull any of its punches. Its stellar direction, fantastic characters, and genuine terror makes this the best film of 2018 for me.
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
And these were my favorite films of 2018. Overall, I felt like it was a pretty good year. A lot of first-time directors making my list, so it's safe to say that I'm looking forward to seeing more from them. Overall, I never really felt gypped or disappointed with movies this year, except for these 5. Number 5, Ready Player One. Ready Player One is the most boring blockbuster I've seen all year. It's overly bloated with terrible characters, lame fan service that barely appeals to fans, unappealing visuals, and an embarrassing misunderstanding of the film's target audience. This was a movie I was mildly looking forward to because of its admittedly neat trailer and Steven Spielberg's name behind it. But honestly, I was fighting back tears because of how bored I was watching this film. This film and the review I made for it taught me a valuable lesson, which is to never review a movie after the initial impressions. Let a movie sit with you, because honestly, I initially gave this movie a 5 when it was really more of a 3 or a 4. Speaking of number 4, Venom! We go get him! Get him! Sony's Venom was like a beautifully iced turd. It has the illusion of a fun Marvel movie and lures you in with Tom Hardy and a neat looking Venom, and then when you take a bite, it's just a piece of shit decorated in cake icing. Not even the good kind. It's a turd iced with fondant. You know that shitty dollar store icing you buy when you want to disappoint your guests? That's fondant. The kind of shit that will single-handedly get you eliminated from those baking shows. Like the judges won't even try that shit, they'll just throw it away.
You know, watching you cook this was just a letdown. We're gonna go from 11 down to 10. And this is what you bring? Coke. This is the most important dish of your life, guys. You see this? This is
You get kicked out faster than you can say, hey, maybe I should have used buttercream, because it's clearly the superior topping for desserts. Sure, it takes a little longer to make, but the flavor and texture are totally worth it. When you eat a pastry and it's covered in fondant, then you just know that that person just fucking hates you. Not even the goddamn devil would give you fondant in any layer of hell, because even he knows that that shit is too cruel. At number 3, we have The Cloverfield Paradox. The Cloverfield Paradox is one of those movies that you hate to watch because it's so unspeakably bad, but you feel the need to watch it to get a sense of a sci-fi franchise that you're mildly interested in. This film just has no sense of pacing, character, or tension. It was clearly just a shitty sci-fi movie that was gonna bomb, so Bad Robot slapped the Cloverfield brand on it, sold it off to Netflix, and then skipped town and run off with the profits. And we all fell for it. Anyways, The Cloverfield Paradox made me abandon hope for this promising franchise and kind of made me more wary of the "these movies are totally connected, guys, we swear" kind of films in the future. And at number 2, we have The Strangers Pray at Night, which is probably my most disliked video of 2018. What happens when you dig up an old movie from 2008, try to modernize it, only to realize that what you have is an awful piece of shit, and then try to slap the 80s aesthetic on it so that people think it's good? Well, you get The Strangers Pray at Night. This movie stands out as particularly awful because it was the very first movie I saw of 2018. And the fact that I remember this film at all is solely because I wanted to add it to this list. And that's really all you need to hear. This callback to 80s slashers film has not only insanely stupid characters, but it also has insanely stupid killers. Yippee! It totally ruins the whole cold, hard, and calculated kill that those movies had. And you could argue that they were just trying to make it more realistic, but I would say that one of those killers gets set on fire and shot multiple times and he walks it off like it's nothing. The lazy 80s aesthetics does nothing to cover up this uninspired writing and dull, flat camera work. And to top it off, this film has the gall to set up for another sequel in the most half-assed way possible. Unfortunately, because of its box office numbers, we'll probably be getting it, I'll probably be seeing it, and I'll probably be reviewing it again in the future. And at number 1, we have The Happy Time Murders. Before I start, I just wanted to say, holy shit, I totally forgot I saw this movie. While looking over a list of releases this year to refresh my terrible memory, I saw the poster for The Happy Time Murders, and immediately I got a brain rush of awful memories. Keep in mind, I watched this movie in December because I was planning to make a video about how terrible it was. I forgot about this film entirely in literally the span of a month. Watching bad movies can in itself be really fun. I mean, there's entire movements and series behind finding movies that are so bad they're good. However, when it comes to bad movies, in my opinion, there's nothing worse than watching a bad comedy. Like, holy shit, when a movie is not even unintentionally funny, there's seriously nothing of value there. And when it comes to the Happy Time Murders, there is truly nothing of value with this movie. When I saw it initially, I think I laughed maybe once. And that was more of my brain just kind of melting down. I wasn't particularly laughing at anything, I was just kind of having a breakdown, I guess. Every single frame of this movie is unfunny. The characters are bland and lame. The acting sucks. The cinematography is flat and lifeless. And this is one of those yell and say dirty things kind of comedies. No thanks. And to think that the original concept art that was released, this film could have been great. An R-rated black comedy starring a grizzled Muppet detective figuring out a murder mystery. Instead, they mostly resorted to gross-out humor and swearing. Such a shame. So those were my best and worst movies of 2018. I tried my best to get out there and watch movies despite an awkward 5 to 6 months in my life in 2018. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to see that many movies. Hopefully 2019 will be better for me both watching movies and my channel. Well, that's it for now, and here's to a great 2019.